Good morning, everyone. I'm your host today, Richard Cardinale, and thank you for tuning in to CNN News. This is a big day for America. Today, Ronald Reagan will take office as President of the United States. President Reagan is not a newcomer to politics. He successfully served as Governor of California from 1967 to 1975. He beat out incumbent Governor Brown for this position by almost 1 million votes. Prior to his political career, President Reagan was a seasoned actor, appearing in over 50 films and took part in several radio and television programs. Without a doubt, President Reagan is a popular man, but getting elected may have been the easy part, but the job will not. The American people are tired of how our country has been run, and they are ready for a change. America has been suffering from one of the longest inflation crises in our history, and we need a leader who can bring us through this crisis. With all the challenges ahead, it will be interesting to see how Ronald Reagan addresses our nation on the first day of his presidency. Well, it's certainly a beautiful day with blue skies and white puffy clouds in Washington, D.C., and we're honored today for this momentous occasion, and I'm happy to have with me Renee, our very own Renee, our CNN correspondent. We have Michael from Sandpiper News in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Okay, and we have Christina, our Harvard Law professor. On occasion, I'm happy to have a report on President Ronald Reagan's first inaugural address. Together, we will analyze the president's speech and discuss its implications for our country. We will begin first talking about why we think Ronald Reagan is a great speaker, and actually take this opportunity to look at a video clip of him giving the speech. Second, we will discuss how President Reagan's speech was structured and the type of communication concepts he used. And lastly, we will examine the way in which he was able to inspire the American people. Let's begin with talking with our guests and find out what's on their mind. So, Christina, why exactly are you so interested in Ronald Reagan and the speech he will be giving today?
You know, Richard, I am very interested in how Ronald Reagan's speech, for how he will be able to speak in front of the country. His ability to really captivate everyone through his words is truly amazing, and I'm really excited to see how he will do that today.
Renee, what are your views on Ronald Reagan as a speaker?
Well, I agree with you, Christina. Ronald Reagan is an amazing communicator and very charismatic. I think his previous acting experience has honed these skills. It is true that not all actors make good politicians, but all politicians must be good actors in one form or another. I believe his acting experience makes him a master communicator and a great storyteller. So I'm excited to watch this speech and see how he does today.
Mike, what are your thoughts regarding the speech you're about to hear today?
Oh, Renee, yeah, great actor, Richard. Yes, very puffy, beautiful clouds. President Reagan seems to have a lot of well-thought plans rolled up his sleeve for improving our economic situation. I'm very excited to hear what he has to say about that and his ideas for helping and improving our country through these tough times.
Let's tune in and watch some President Reagan's speech and see what he has to say, where we stand as a nation, and where we are headed.
The economic ills we suffer have come upon us over several decades. They will not go away in days, weeks, or months, but they will go away. They will go away because we, as Americans, have the capacity now, as we've had in the past, to do whatever needs to be done to preserve this last and greatest bastion of freedom. In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. From time to time, we've been tempted to believe that society has become too complex to be managed by self-rule, that government by an elite group is superior to government for, by, and of the people. Well, if no one among us is capable of governing himself, then who among us has the capacity to govern someone else? All of us together, in and out of government, must bear the burden The solutions we seek must be equitable, with no one group singled out to pay a higher price. We hear much of special interest groups. Well, our concern must be for a special interest group that has been too long neglected. It knows no sectional boundaries or ethnic and racial divisions, and it crosses political party lines. It is made up of men and women who raise our food, patrol our streets, man our mines and factories, teach our children, keep our homes, and heal us when we're sick. Professionals, industrialists, shopkeepers, clerks, cabbies, and truck drivers. They are, in short, we the people. This breed called Americans. Well, this administration's objective will be a healthy, vigorous, growing economy that provides equal opportunities for all Americans, with no barriers born of bigotry or discrimination. Putting America back to work means putting all Americans back to work. Ending inflation means freeing all Americans from the terror of runaway living costs. All must share in the productive work of this new beginning, and all must share in the bounty of a revived economy. With the idealism and fair play which are the core of our system and our strength, we can have a strong and prosperous America at peace with itself and the world. So as we begin, let us take inventory. We are a nation that has a government, not the other way around. And this makes us special among the nations of the earth. Our government has no power except that granted it by the people. It is time to check and reverse the growth of government, which shows signs of having grown beyond the consent of the governed. It is my intention to curb the size and influence of the federal establishment and to demand recognition of the distinction between the powers granted to the federal government and those reserved to the states or to the people. All of us need to be reminded that the federal government did not create the states. The states created the federal government. Now, so there will be no misunderstanding, it's not my intention to do away with government. It is rather to make it work. Work with us, not over us. To stand by our side, not ride on our back. Government can and must provide opportunity, not smother it. Foster productivity, not stifle it. If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price...
Wow, what a powerful speech, and a vision for the people of this great nation. Mike, what communication concepts do you notice President Reagan used in his visionary speech today?
That was beautiful. All right, sorry about that. First of all, he used non-verbal communications in his speech very well. He was very poised with a presidential look about him. And I really love his hair, by the way, too. I want to see what kind of gel he used. The fact that he was using a fixed microphone and had to remain stationary through his speech was a challenge. But President Reagan is such a great speaker that he varied his pitch and used well-placed pauses to create emphasis about what he was saying. His use of language and vocabulary was relatable to everyone, which I believe is very important when giving a speech to such a diverse crowd. He also used great articulation when speaking, as well as a relaxing tone of voice that practically drew the audience in. Overall, I thought it was an excellent speech.
Very well stated. Renee, what were your thoughts as we look at this defining moment?
Well, Richard, I think President Reagan did an excellent job of expressing a clear vision for his first term in office. His speech addressed the concerns of the American people and offered a lot of hope. He used specific communication concepts such as identification, crisis response, and a call for action to make his speech more effective. First, I noticed how President Reagan used identification to connect with the audience. In his speech, he talked about the value and importance of people from all walks of life. He mentioned everyone, including shopkeepers, clerks, cabbies, truck drivers, housekeepers, and teachers. Also, throughout his speech, he continuously used words like we, our, and us. This sense of identification created commonality between himself and the audience. Next, I noticed how President Reagan confronted the difficult issues head-on. Through his crisis response presentation, he reassured Americans that together we can solve this economic crisis. He did not sugarcoat the problems. He spoke honestly about them, about how bad things are right now. But he also reassured the public that our country will be restored and once again be the great nation it has always been. And finally, after presenting his vision to improve our situation, the President made a clear call of action. He challenged each of us to make necessary sacrifices to ensure our country's success. He said, the crisis we are facing today requires our best effort and our willingness to believe in ourselves. He called on each of us to act today in order to guarantee our success tomorrow.
Very well thought out points. Christina, what did you notice that stood out for the American people today?
You know, Richard, I really noticed that President Reagan appealed to the audience by using effective communication techniques such as logos, pathos, and mythos. I first noticed that throughout his speech, he supported many of his statements by using logic to persuade the American people, which is an excellent example of logos. Take, for instance, when he said, in this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem, but government is the problem. He was trying to persuade the people of his philosophy that we need to really rely less on government and rely more on private business and the power of individuals. Secondly, I noticed that President Reagan used pathos to appeal to the audience's emotions. For example, when he said, your dreams, your hopes, your goals are going to be the dreams, the hopes, and the goals of the administration, so help me God. Reagan is putting the values of the public front and center, which touches the hearts of the people. And lastly, I really noticed that President Reagan displays that he's an ethical and honest man, which is an example of ethos. He comes and says things such as, the solutions that we seek must be equitable, with no one group singling out to pay a higher price. He also stated, we will match loyalty with loyalty, and we will strive for mutually beneficial relations, which are all examples of high moral character and desire to treat all individuals and other nations with fairness and equality.
Thank you all, correspondents, today. Thank you, Christina, Renee, Mike, for reporting with us today and sharing your interest with Ronald Reagan's speech. You all had great points that you all addressed. As you all could see, President Reagan's first inauguration speech was very significant and impressive. Today we have talked about why we were interested in hearing President Reagan. We also stated how, throughout his speech, Reagan demonstrated excellent communication concepts that captured the audience's attention. This has been a very inspiring speech, but it has come at a time when our country needed to hear these words most. President Reagan's command of the audience, eloquent speaking style inspires us to believe that we will overcome this economic crisis, and together we will become a greater nation in spite of the adversity we are facing. President Reagan's vision for this country and belief that we will prosper once again is so encouraging. President Reagan is inspirational because he is a visionary. He is a man of character and knows what he stands for. Most importantly, he has great courage and is willing to invest his best effort in our country and fight for our freedom. This is a great day, and I want to thank you all for joining us on ZNN News.